this weird thing where I don't know.
Oh, no, we're live. It says live on Facebook.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Hold on. This is trying to figure out how to watch Facebook without getting that weird doubling effect.
Oh, I don't want to do that. I would be confused.
You just have to mute it. You have to think.
So there's no way to get chat in here, right? Because all the chatter is going to be on Facebook.
Correct.
Fuck.
So I have to mute.
I'll just wait till there's enough chat to hide the video.
No, you can go ahead and hold on a second. I'm going to give you the link. This is what happens when you do a webinar style thing, guys. Okay, so I'm going to paste that for you, and then you can go there, but just mute the video right away so it doesn't confuse you.
All right.
This is the admin part. Hello, everybody.
This is fun for everybody, I'm sure.
Lauren's here already. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren. All right, and then I'll mute this.
And you almost have to like not watch.
I don't want to look at myself now.
Don't, but you just have to scroll down or something. Like make the window small and scroll down so you can at least see the comments.
Oh my God.
Although, as we'll explain here shortly, there'll come a point where we can't pay attention to the comments because we're going to be recording a thing. So anyway,
so specific.
I know. It's all very confusing. This is new. This is the first time that we're doing this.
No, it's the first time we're doing this on Facebook Live, which makes it weird,
correct.
Right? It's not the first webinar. It's not the first backstory. It's not the first Facebook Live. It's the first of all three of these together, for sure.
All right. So I'm sharing it to the personal timeline. And then hold on, let me see if I can I want to add a note that this contains spoilers because that's super important. I'm doing that now. We'll get into the interesting stuff in a second. For now, talks to more.
This isn't it.
I know.
This isn't it because this is fascinating. How about that local sports team?
Okay, so I just left a comment, which is the best I can do. All right. So, and let me do it also on the other post, so I don't want anyone coming in and finding a spoiler and being upset with us. So let me do that.
Thank you, everyone, for letting us waste your time.
Yeah, but this is harder than just going live on your iPhone.
That's true. We actually coordinated this.
Okay, I'm almost done. All right, and that post is updated, and I can see your interactions, but I am not overly distracted by them. Well, I won't be in a second, and I think that we're good. Okay, so let me give you a kind of a rundown here. So for anybody who's here live, which is I saw Lauren and Trina at least, and I see Jane. This is kind of like
wow, it's like romper room.
Yeah, it's like romper room. So what we're gonna do is we've done these. Okay, so first of all, let's do a little intro, right? So first of all, I'm Aubrey. I'm the one you've interacted with. If you've interacted with on Facebook, then in one sense, I am definitely Aubrey. However, in a truer sense, we're also both kind of Aubrey because we both have a hand in writing the books.
Oh my God, this is so confusing.
It's a complicated sort of a thing, but it is true. And so that's something.
It sounds like the kind of thing that would get you in trouble in a rom-com.
It really does. When there was a misunderstanding. Did you see that episode of Three's Company where there was a misunderstanding between
a few times?
Yeah. So that's sort of what we have going on here. But I'm Aubrey. I'm trying not to mention the other name, but I also go by Johnny V. Truant, and that's why Sean Platt is the other guy. That's why sometime during this he will call me.
I will call him Johnny. It's imprinted on me. It's very difficult not to do that, and it's also weird because, like he said, in a way, we're both Aubrey. Like we treat the stories as ours, but he is 100% the public face. Like he's been there in Facebook. So he is a truer Aubrey for sure, but still it's weird. It's almost like calling him Seanish.
It's Inception. It's, every interaction that you've had with Aubrey has been with me. Any photos and videos that have been shared, those are mine. I write the emails. But again, like behind the scenes and the way that we work, we're both Aubrey. We've both been, we both write the books, and that's something we're going to talk about today. So just to lay the ground here, this is the first time we've ever done one of these on Facebook Live, but it's not the first time we've ever done, we call these backstories. But it's the first time we've done it live. So what we figured we'd do is just, lay the groundwork now, like kind of warm up and do introductions. And then we'll record what will also be a standalone, like a podcast, an audio file for about a half an hour. And that will be spoiler rich. So just let you know, if you haven't read the Trillionaire Boys Club books, and specifically The Guru.
All the way through to The Guru, yeah.
Right. We're going to talk spoilers. There's just kind of no way not to. I've tried to be really careful about making sure you guys know that. But again, there are spoilers. So don't watch if you don't want spoilers. And during that time, we won't really interact. We'll interact with each other, but we won't interact with commenters, just because it's something that's going to stand alone as an audio file, and it won't make sense if I go, hey, hold on, somebody was saying this. Like, that won't make sense. When we're done, though, we'll turn off the recording. And if you have questions or whatever, then we will interact at that point. And I have a hard stop at 5 because I have to go pick somebody up, 5 Central Time. But yours until then.
Yeah, and these are really fun. We originally thought of these as like DVD extras for our books. So we do them with all the Johnny and Sean books that we write. And we've always wanted to do them for Aubrey books, but we couldn't before now because, we were keeping Aubrey under wraps until it was time. And now it's time. So this is really exciting because it's not just a backstory for, for the Guru. It's a backstory for Trillionaire and really all of Aubrey. Like it's really an Aubrey backstory, the first one, and they'll be a little bit different going forward, but this is special. There's nothing like the first time, right?
Wow, innuendo all over the place. So should we go ahead and begin the actual backstory stuff? I mean, we've given people kind of time to get here and
yeah,
so.
that sounds good to me. I mean, there's no change for us, right? We just do the
I'm just gonna hit record on my little digital recorder, and we'll just go ahead and begin talking. Just one final reminder, and
spoilers, they are coming.
Their spoilers are coming, and just please don't be offended that we're not acknowledging you. We will when we're done, about a half an hour from now. But we're just going to talk, and you can talk amongst yourselves. That you can do. So that's it. And are you ready, John?
I am ready.
All right,
Aubrey.
And we'll do a little intro too. So it's going to be Inception for everybody watching live. Okay. So here we go. Hey everybody. Welcome to the backstory for the Guru, but also for the entire Trillionaire Boys Club series. And the reason is because we haven't done these for other books. And usually we would have liked in our other life to, when we do these for other books under other names, to have done one for book 1 and book 2, but we were under wraps, and we were not out as Aubrey. I was not out as Aubrey, and so we didn't do them. But now we are, and so it's great to be able to do this. But it's gonna cover the whole series, which is super cool. And if this is your first time clicking a link, like, here, let's see what Aubrey has to say, and you're kind of what the fuck right now. Yeah, I'm a dude, and there's another guy here too who co-writes the books. So. I'm the Aubrey you all know, and the other guy is Sean, and I guess that's it. So that's intros, right? And just a reminder, this will contain spoilers. One more time.
Yeah, tons fat with spoilers. This is like, they're going to be spoilers vomiting everywhere. But this is really cool because doing these backstories is kind of like decompression for us. When we finish a book, it's a way to say goodbye to that book, or in some cases to a series, and it's closure. And we haven't been able to have closure on Trillionaire yet because we haven't been able to have closure on anything for Aubrey yet, really, because until recently, everyone knew Aubrey was a pen name. Everyone knew Aubrey was a guy. But now we know what those pen names are, or the original names are, and that it's 2 guys. So now we can have, better conversations, and that's really exciting. But this series was really cool, and it's had a pretty cool journey. And, so I guess, let's get started.
All right. So kind of wondering where to begin. This is like Sean said, this is the first time we've done this for Aubrey. And so I kind of don't know where to begin except for maybe at the beginning. So we've written romance in a few guises, but we've had a few goes at romance before. And I don't want to go too much into this because we really do want to talk Trillionaire series. But this was the first time that we really started interacting with the audience in just kind of a next level way. Like we're romantic sorts of guys. Like we both have very good kind of sweet relationships with our wives. But the actually getting the handle on the genre was new. And it was, if you've read the Inferno Falls trilogy, you notice that there's a distinct difference between those and then the Trevor's Harem series, beginning with the Burning Offer, and then with the Trillionaires, as we listen to you, the readers, and sort of evolve the style.
Right. So when we started, we were trying to be kind of sweet, and Johnny and I, Aubrey and I, like to write, really dark stuff. And what you'll see in, our regular stuff, actually, no, that's an accurate statement. Johnny and I like to write, some really dark things, and we love science fiction, and a lot of our stuff has sexualized elements to it. And Aubrey gives us a chance to kind of stretch those muscles and really explore those narratives in a different environment. And that's really fun. And the first time we really got to lean into that was Trevor's Harem, which, we wanted something that moved really fast. So we liked the idea of 4 novellas, boom, 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 boom. Let's keep readers excited. Let's keep them engaged. But there was a lot of psychology there. There's a lot of dark stuff in there. And there was a lot of psychology.
There was 4 or 5 books worth of research involved in that.
Yeah, and we always do that before we take on a project. We'll really dive deep into the things that can help influence the truth of that project. And so we were reading a lot of things about human chemistry and all the stuff with the prairie voles. It's true. And that was just
the one where they actually gave them little leather jackets, fetishes. That was also true.
Which is just fantastic. And I was getting, all these IMs the whole time. Oh my God, they're leather jackets, right? So that was a really fun project. But Trevor's Harem really gave birth to the Trillionaire series. We could not have had one without the other. And even though we had a couple of books in between there, that was really a nice progression. And I don't know, do you want to talk about kind of how it was during Trevor's Harem we realized what we were actually doing by accident?
So let's rewind the clock a little bit here. So the Trillionaire series is a lead into, again, like spoilers. So if you've read this, you've finished the Guru, which means that you've seen that the next project is called The Future of Sex. We'll talk about this during a backstory for The Future of Sex, but that's an old project. Like that's been around for quite a while. People who know our self-publishing podcast and the other stuff, they've heard that under a few names. The Future of Sex. And so we knew what that was, that exists in a world of another series that we wrote as Johnny and Sean, a Platt & Truant book called The Beam. And The Beam is a futuristic world. It takes place in the year 2097. And there's just this, omnipresent network. And so when we wrote The Future of Sex, it's in the same world. It's basically 37 years earlier. It takes place around 2060. And it was prehistory for The Beam. So it was like between now and The Beam, there was this kind of interim phase where The Beam was new. And so we wrote this story about a sex company and a prodigy and all that stuff. And I won't go into that because, again, like that's for Future of Sex. But when we were writing The Burning Offer specifically, we knew that Daniel was going to own a sex company. And so I'm like kind of giddy over there, like, what if it's O? Because O was the company in Future Sex. I'm like, that'll be fun. I'll just make it O, because why not? And it was a very, by the way, decision, but you're now reading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 books later. Look where it went, right? Like that one little innocent decision steered this all the way toward The Future of Sex, which is a crossover world to our other identities.
Yeah, and that was really complicated. And it's funny because part of the beauty of romance is that you know what to expect. You know, there's a happily ever after. Like the rhythm of that. It's like people love a certain kind of music for a reason. It's because it gives them a feeling. Like they like the rhythm of that. And romance it's really fun to paint in those colors as storytellers because we know what the beats are. So how well can we play them? And we kind of had to break all the rules to set up the future of sex and to make the Trillionaires really believable. And we wanted the boy club and Aubrey, do you want to tell that story about kind of the walk that we had when this series was actually born and kind of how we worked backwards from there?
So are you talking about how we came up with the idea of like the syndicate and the idea of the are you talking, is this the justification argument? Like, how is this doable?
Well, yeah, just because I think that's really fascinating because I think that we do approach, we approach storytelling differently than I think a lot of authors. And I think part of that is that it's collaborative, that we really get to shape ideas because there's so much back and forth. But part of it is just that we like to do things differently. And believing in our stories is super, super important. And I know that, we talk to a lot of romance authors and a lot of romance authors say, it's okay. It's just, you can paint in broad strokes. And we want to believe the stories 100%. So we were having a conversation one time, and I'm going to pass the mic here because you tell this story well. But it was when Trillionaires was born, this whole idea.
Well, I'm not sure which part of the story you want me to tell, so I'm going to begin, and I'll tell the part that I think, and you can fill in whatever details. But the idea was we wanted to explore sort of a next level of power, and so we wanted to create this this powerful group of people who weren't just like, honestly, like it bugs both of us a little bit when somebody's just the hero just is a billionaire. Like, guess what? He's a billionaire. And, no disrespect at all. Like, that's awesome if that's how people want to write and consume, but it doesn't work for us. And so we want to explain it. And that's something that has actually been a detriment. Like, there have been people who are like, these books are too explainy. Like, I don't need the background. But whatever, that's the way that both of us are wired. And so Sean created intricate backstories for the billionaires that we were using earlier on, just the richer guys. And then when we talked about the idea of a syndicate, we're like, okay, well, these guys are going to control $1 trillion in assets. So I got this project file, which contained, we do little dossiers, little bios on every character. And it had like a photo of who would play that person in a movie and an explanation of their business and what their net worth is. So I actually didn't do this with a lot of, with many people, but when I posted on the Aubrey Parker blog about Nathan, like I gave his net worth. I was like 0.04 billion or something. And the reason was because that was something that Sean gave me, and he was keeping track of what all the billionaires were worth because it had to add up to $1 trillion. So he came up with like, I don't know, 100 and some billionaires and what their net worths were. And the idea was they would control this $1 trillion asset pool that would be trying to change the world. And so after writing Trevor's Harem, and then we wrote Gagged and Hotel Indigo and Almost Wrong, then it was like, okay, so this is positioned that clearly whatever the syndicate is up to, we've already foreshadowed the fuck out of it over there. Like, Alexa Mathis is involved somehow, and she's kind of a nefarious bitch. Like, I love Alexa. I think she's a great character, but she's kind of a bitch too, right?
Alexa's a bitch.
You know that she's up to something. And Parker Barnes is involved. And if you've read, like, Parker is a total asshole, and I love him. Like, in Future of Sex, I love Parker because he's an asshole. But we had set up, like, they're up to something, and we already have these things in play. So we already know that that Parker Barnes and Alexa are somehow involved, and O is somehow involved. And we were like, well, we're just going to build that bridge. Like, why not? We're going to build the bridge. So through the first arc of the Trillionaire Boys Club, books 1 through 6 was, let's take it from the seeds that we've done in the previous books that we've seeded, and let's build it all the way up to what foreshadows Future of Sex. And so the Guru was this linchpin where, like, It all had to come together. The Guru had to fit with the entirety of the Aubrey universe up until that point, and the Trillionaire Club specifically. And then it had to fit with Future of Sex coming on the other end, which had to fit into the beam. So it was like this master tapestry. I know I like way off topic.
Well, no. That's actually circling back nicely, because that's what we were saying, that romance is like music, and you pick it for a reason and you stick with that. But we broke all that rules because we wanted to make this web, right? And we did. We linked everything together. And what I'm trying to say is that despite it being romance, which is supposedly more straightforward storytelling, it's the most complicated thing we've ever done, and therefore the thing I'm most proud of as a storyteller so far. Together, we've created millions of words, and I just feel this is really special because it ticks so many boxes, and it has so many limbs, I guess.
Yeah, I have. I've said that out of all of our, just to break the fourth wall a little bit, we write under Platt and Truant as well as Aubrey Parker, and there are other names out there too. And so together we've written something like 7 or 8 million words, something like that. And my favorite is a Platt and Truant book called Devil May Care. That is my favorite book that we've written. However, from a pure artistic standpoint, this intersection of the Guru and the Future of Sex 1, that nexus is my favorite. Future of Sex is my favorite. And the way that the Guru dovetails into it is like artistically, like that was such a creative challenge. It was like, it was like fitting a puzzle together in the dark. You didn't really know what it was going to look like.
It really, really was. And you'll see too, when you get to Future of Sex, how many complications we had to work with, because right now I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, it's complicated, but we had to get there, and we had to keep the things that were good complicated about it, and the puzzles, and work backwards from there, while also not making it a chore to read. So that's where
Tammy stepped in.
Right. But basically we as storytellers and as an extended team have worked harder on getting this to market and making it a beautiful experience for you readers than anything else we've done, just because it had so much work to do, and we're really proud of it. So we hope that you love it, and we do have some really cool stuff coming up after Future of Sex. We're getting back to Trillionaires, and the tone will be a little bit different because we have a different job to do, and we're really looking forward to that, pleasing you in a totally different way.
And Aubrey readers are really amazing. One of the author's notes that I wrote, I want to say it was probably the Burning Ultimatum. I think it was the last Trevor's Harem book. It was just like, you know what? These books turned out a lot more complicated than I thought. Like there was like subliminal programming and biological conditioning and just some really complicated shit back then. And it's much more complicated now. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to apologize for it. Like this is how I write. I actually, I have a degree in molecular genetics and psychology. And so I started a PhD in genetics, and I then bailed because I'm a storyteller and screw that. But it was like, this is how I'm wired. Like I'm going to write stuff that's maybe overly complicated. And then we have somebody like Tammy who says, okay, let's comb some of that out just to soften it a little bit. But Aubrey books are going to be romance with this other thing mixed in it too. They're always going to be romances first and foremost, but there's always something else. It's always going to be complicated. It's going to be a little bit of a mind fuck. And that continued with what honestly could have been a real candy series, meaning that like you could have enjoyed them on just one level, like, rich hero and the heroine, and they fall in love, and maybe the guy's a real alpha. But it could have stopped there, but we were like, no,
it's just not, that's not enough for us. And if it's not enough for us, it's not enough for you. And I know there's a lot of readers out there who will take, they'll take more of a skim off the surface, but we want more from our readers, and we want to give you more.
And the readers have stepped up. I've had more than one person who said, thank you very much for putting all that into those stories.
Yeah. And you can tell, and maybe we're not going to, reach everyone, but I think that the readers that we do reach are going to really connect with the worlds that we're building and the people that, we're filling them with. And so, yeah, I mean, basically, if you're listening to this right now, you are one of those people. So thank you for bonding with our work and being here, because we do put everything that we have into every word that we write, and we want our worlds to be sincere and believable, which is why we went through such great lengths to have 100 100 billionaires to make sure that you could believably believe that they could form this trillionaire syndicate, because it's not enough to just say he's a billionaire, right?
So let's talk about Anthony, because this is first and foremost sort of about the Guru. It's about TBC 1 through 6, but specifically the Guru. So I've enjoyed all the heroes. That's just sort of an artifact of the way that I write. I do tend to like pretty much all my characters. By the way, before we get to Anthony, do you have a favorite Aubrey character, Sean? I definitely have a favorite.
Oh, well, yeah. My favorite would be Caspian.
Oh, fucker. Yeah, that's mine too.
I also really do like a couple of the characters in Future of Sex. I don't want to talk about who they are now because I don't want to give too much away. But I don't know if that counts. I don't think they count as Aubrey characters, do they?
Well, they do, but
they weren't born as Aubrey.
Talk about them yet.
Well, they weren't born. Anthony was born as a Aubrey character, so I really do like Anthony a lot, and I liked him because we were starting to swerve a little bit. We went into the Guru really conscientious. Like, okay, these guys before have been kind of dicks. Like, let's make him, like, he's honorable. He's trying to change the world. Like, he's the most, he's a gentle giant almost, right? He's ethical. He's pure. He wants to do the right thing. He's driven. But that was a little different for us. I like that a lot.
Yeah, Caspian is my favorite. By far. And I think you'll see that Caspian continues to recur. He's the most recurring character, I think. Now, I don't want to, talk about much, but Caspian is the one that we've kind of consistently seen, right? Like, Caspian has just a few little appearances here and there throughout the series. Basically, ever since Gagged, it's been like, okay, we can't quite let that guy go because he's just a little bit too much.
Well, we had actually written Gagged before we wrote Trevor. So we knew that was coming, and so he was like it was a guest spot, really, right? And I don't think I planned that. I think that you just put him in there, maybe.
Yeah, but maybe we should let's talk about process a little bit. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but we've talked about this ad nauseum with a lot of our other stuff. Again, we have a self-publishing podcast, so some of these things our other audiences have heard a billion times. But if you're an Aubrey reader and this is your first backstory and your first time hearing us, you haven't heard this. But basically the way that it works is Sean does the planning. We discuss, and then I get a package. So there's it's like characters, like a full character profiles, plot outline, and locations. And there's a lot of care put into these packages. And then I'm just remembering something. It's hard to stick to Trillionaire Boys Club because we haven't talked about Aubrey at all. But and then I just kind of start writing, and sometimes I follow the outline very faithfully, and sometimes I do not. I ignore.
Sometimes he's like, "Fuck that."
Well, because you listen to the story, and the characters tell you what to do. And the reason I was chuckling before is because with Gagged, I basically imagine that somebody maps out the distance. Maps out LA to Chicago for you, and they say, okay, the first thing is you go out of your door and you turn right, and then you do all these things to get to Chicago. I basically went out the door and turned left. So I I used all the character stuff, but all of the, we call them beats, like the outline stuff, immediately gone, immediately. Gagged was written totally off the top of my head. But because of that, I think that Caspian became this kind of larger than life character because I wasn't really in control of him. Like, he was just, guess what? I'm going to get my dick out and swagger around and tell you what to do. So, but anyway, so I actually don't even remember if Caspian appears in the Guru. The fans will probably know, but Anthony is the opposite of Caspian.
Right. He's someone you can trust. The thing is, no one can ever trust Caspian, except Aurora. I think maybe Aurora, well, and maybe his sister. I think
Aurora can trust him.
Yeah, right. No, Aurora could trust him, and well, I could see him.
He'll do nefarious shit that doesn't. And he's not going to cheat, but he'll like backstab other people. Like she can't trust him in that way, but he can.
Right. He's just. But if Anthony told you something, you would absolutely believe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So like that's important, right? That's a different kind of character for this series. But it also really, I think, set up nicely. One of the things we're trying to do there artistically was set up a contrast, because Alexa Mathis is very much not Anthony. So that was pretty cool too. Do you want to talk about the progression? Like, because this is really not just the Guru, but Trillionaire. Do you want to talk about going from the connector and, how we proceeded through?
That's a little bit like going through the dark on a dark and winding road, and your headlights only see so far ahead. So, again, to go with my LA to Chicago metaphor, you can't see Chicago when you start out from LA. You can just see, a handful of yards in front of you, because that's where the car is showing you. So we wrote the connector knowing that Nathan was the connector. He was the founder, and what he lacked in assets, he made up for in scrappiness. Now, of course, the dude still is a billionaire, so it's not like he was lacking in assets. But that was his superpower, was to bring these other higher net worth people together. And once we knew who Nathan was, in each one, we're going to tease the next people a little bit. And so once we knew that Ashton was going to be book 2, then it was like, okay, well, so what can we develop a little bit more? And Ashton, if I remember right, these all run together, but I think in book 3, which is Cole's book, the producer, there's a scene where Cole meets Anthony. And we knew Anthony was coming from about book 3 on. I don't think we knew early. Matter of fact, Anthony was not one of your original people.
No, I knew. No, he wasn't. He got added. And I remember when he got added, and it was at the end of book 2. And I remember the very moment I had the idea, because I turned to Cindy, my wife, and I told her the whole thing. I'm like, oh, and then we could do this and this and this. And because then we were working backwards. So, there was no choice with the connector. That had to be the first book, because you had to explain how these people came together. And that was almost like that book served as if Trillionaire Boys Club was a movie, then that's the opening scene, right? That's the guide. That's the camera shot that it's an establishing shot that lets you know these are the players. And so we never really had a choice there. The second book really could have been anyone, but by the third book, we're moving the story forward. Like we knew, I like the producer a lot. I think the producer might be my favorite, right behind the Guru, for the Trillionaire books. I like Cole a lot. I like Cole's business a lot. I like his business mind a lot. I like their relationship. But then like moving the ball forward, just nudging it closer and closer to Anthony, and what we're to lead in then to the future of sex, which was a totally different model too. We're putting those out like every 10 days, and they're shorter, and it's going to be more like a like a show that you're addicted to. And we're finishing up this project right now. And I was just saying, again to Cindy, that this is 12 episodes. Essentially, this really reads like a full season of television. And oh wait, hold on. I'm sorry.
Why are you being distracted?
Well, no, because Facebook Live just refreshed, and then I heard myself talking in the background.
Yeah. So basically, so let's get into the really spoilery stuff. So we wanted Anthony because we knew we were leading up to Anthony from book 3, basically. And so because of that, then we wanted to begin seeding him slowly and seeding sort of the mission. So from book 3 on, if I'm remembering this right, they started talking about, because before it was just like the plan, like that was just vague, Nathan's got this plan. And so now it's,
sometimes when we're vague, we know, and sometimes when we're vague, we don't know.
Plenty of times. And there was, we'll talk about this during the future of sex, because there was a time where we set ourselves an obstacle and we literally did not know what was happening next, and it was running live. Anyway, so that's the whole thing. But we knew that we were steering toward Anthony, And so we wanted to continue seeding him, and that was what the Trillionaire Club was doing. You didn't know what it was, you just knew that it was Anthony's vision. And we came up with this idea of, he wanted to have this app, but not just an app. It was an app with just like a ton of social engineering behind it.
More like a platform than an app.
And you'll see this in Future of Sex because, not to get into that, and this doesn't really spoil anything, but that O was using some of the same tactics. Like Alexa got some of this from Anthony, and some of it was recycled, and you'll see that. But the point is, they wanted to put a large push behind this to basically change behavior in a way that Anthony would benefit because he would be changing the world. But at the same time, there was that discussion with Alexa where he's on the phone with her a few times, and he's arguing, look, we can do both. You can make a lot of money, you can have your impact, you can grow your business, and I can change the world, and those aren't going to clash. But by the way, early on in the book, I actually thought they were going to agree. I actually thought that was going to be the way it was going to go. Anthony and Alexa were going to agree. However, that's not what happened. And so as the draft continued, I realized, you know what? They're not going to agree. Anthony's going to realize that Alexa's way is going to harm his ability to change the world, which is why at the end it fell apart. Which is the perfect decision. It's the perfect decision. The story would not have worked nearly as well the other way. And, it works in two ways. It works great for the guru itself, but it also does a much better job of setting up the future of sex too. And I also really believe this conflict because, we all love Facebook. We're on it, all the time. But what's most important to Facebook? Your data, right? That's what they care about. Facebook is the company. That's what they want. Right. So it makes sense. Live Life would be collecting data. It would make sense that if there was this huge initiative on this platform that everybody's using, somebody as altruistic as Anthony is, all these people are in the business of making money, right? And so what do they know? They know how to make money. And what is worth more than anything right now and going forward into the future? Data. Data is the most valuable resource that we have right now. And so it would be natural that a Trillionaire Boys Club would be focused on data, and they would pick the big idea that would allow that to happen. And there is no bigger idea than sex. We're all connected with sex. It's a part of our lives. It's a part of our thought processes, which is why it's so important to us as storytellers that we tell that story. And it's why we love the borders within Aubrey. Like, it's a great storytelling playground for us for exactly that reason. We get to dig a little deeper into places that we can't go otherwise. And so it was really easy for us to buy into Anthony's mission, because if people are less ashamed, if people are more honest with themselves and the world, and we start younger and we're more direct with our children, we could raise better people and we would have less problems. Because we make Anthony very grandiose in his arguments, but I don't disagree with the things that he's saying. Like, if people had less shame, there would be less problems in the world. How many wars have been fought over? He's putting it in some very direct terms, but I like that. I like that argument, and I can believe that someone would have the altruistic vision there to change the world, and somebody else would say, "Yeah, can I skim off the top?" Right? So I believe both of these people, and I believe both of their motives. And when you're creating a story, that's it. You need those motives. That's important. So another thing that evolves is when I get a story outline from Sean, the relationship is it hits the beats basically. So it's like, if you're listening to this, you've read enough romance novels to know, they meet, they slowly fall in love. There's a declaration, and then there's a misunderstanding, and they fall out of love, and then they have to redeem themselves. Like, these are the major sort of plot points that are just in just about every romance. So I know that those things are going to occur, but I don't really know how their relationship is going to unfold. So in The Producer, Alyssa kind of had a whole, I want to relinquish control and you control me. I didn't realize that was going to happen. That came out of the blue. But similarly with Anthony and Caitlin, the whole idea that she is distracting him from what matters most to him in the world, that he thinks matters the most to him in the world is his business. And so she's a distraction that he thinks he can manage. So he doesn't know himself. I think I can manage this. I think I'm cool. And when she realizes that he doesn't even realize that he doesn't know himself. He's not being honest with himself. He doesn't realize that he needs her. It set up this perfect thing for the schism with the boys club as well, because it's like he has to realize that her influence on him is not a distraction. It is an augmentation. It makes it clear to him what he should and should not be doing with this mission. It does not cloud it. And so that was something that happened organically. And it's the reason that Anthony basically said, you know what, right mission, wrong partners. So why he walked away from the boys club is because, and it does conveniently set up that he's choosing Caitlin over Alexa, which is great. But those things just kind of happened as they happened. So I'm very pleased with it.
Do you have a favorite scene in The Guru?
Well, I mean, if I say it, it's just going to blow your favorite scene. So why don't you go ahead and give yours? I'm assuming now, it should be the wrong one, so I can give the other one.
Oh, well, mine is definitely the scene, because it's a scene that almost didn't get written, right? Because so it's at the end.
It is a scene that almost didn't get written. We had some, because just before he actually tells the story, I stalled with 10% left of the book at the end of last year.
That's right.
Stalled because I didn't know how to reconcile and tie into the future of sex. These were very hard things to do. We had hours and hours of story meetings, walking around the park. I was recording so I could listen back later, trying to figure out what does Alexa want, what does the boys club want, what does Anthony want, and how do I square these? And it wasn't until after like Christmas break and stuff that I came back and finished it off. So the scene he's talking about is I almost didn't do it. And from the beginning, it was like, okay, this is the whole book revolves around this scene. And when I said, you know what, I'm probably not going to do that scene, I think he was going to start crying.
I was kind of sad because it was, I thought of those scenes as bookends. When the original part of the story, before I hand it off and, I'm done for the time being, I see these bookends, this opening scene where she's at Fate of the Palm, and like that just seemed very clear. And then the end, of course, you have that twin scene where she's, calling him on his shit. And I so wanted to see this scene, and it just looked like it wasn't going to be part of the narrative, which is totally fine. Like I am very used to that because the story goes where it goes, and that's awesome. It's better that way. But I did miss that scene, but it's in there and it's great. It's as good as I imagined it would be. And so, yeah, that's my favorite scene.
I mean, that's the easy one. I also really like the concluding scene, the little coda.
Yeah.
So, because, after the climactic action of a book and in a romance, it would be, the reconciliation, the really emotional scene. Then you always have just a little something. And that's not just romance, that's everything. There's always just this little tying things up sort of thing. And in this case, normally it's just like you see into the happily ever after, like I'm thinking of, I think it was Gagged. I don't remember where they're no, it wasn't Gagged. It was, I think it was Almost Wrong, where they're like out on the porch, and they're looking across just know, like, I think she's pregnant, just that sort of thing. Like, what's going to happen. But in this, it wasn't just that. You know what? The end of Burning Ultimatum was the same. It was the same, like I got to tie it into something else. Mm-hmm. And it was the sort of the gotcha scene, because that's the one where you realize that you had this big A story of the romance, but this is where you find out what happened with the B story of the business. And so all along, like, we kind of think that he's going into business with Alexa. And this is where you realize that it falls apart, and they've also kind of turned the tables, but also there's something wrong, man. There's just in those last few that Anthony is just he's like, oh, I think Alexa's still up to some shit. Like, clearly there's some other stuff that's going to be going on with Alexa, and that, of course, we're trying to hook you into the future of sex because it's amazing. But that for that reason, I really do love that.
Yeah, the future of sex, we've long agreed, is just one of our favorite things that we've written. And it's so awesome that we got to revisit it, because it was a half-done project that we thought,
like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and to be able to circle back and make it better than it and like we ever imagined it could be, and tie into Aubrey and be kind of a bridge between our worlds and make everything living and breathing and real for us is just, it's a hallmark of like what we've done so far as storytellers. I'm just stupidly proud. So thanks for reading.
Yeah. So we'll continue to do more backstories as we go. Like we said, this is, I want to say 16 books worth of backstory, because we're just kind of getting into like, this is the first time we've been able to talk about Aubrey openly at all. And so this is kind of like you're getting the whole deluge from the fire hose. But in future books, I'm looking forward to doing these because we can focus more on like the Future of Sex one's going to be crazy fun. But anyway, so this was great. And thank you for reading, and thank you for listening and or watching. And we'll see you on the next book, I guess.
Thank you.
All right. So that I ended the recording, which means I'm going to try to transition back to actually interacting with people on Facebook without confusing the hell out of myself by turning audio on or something like that.
Oh my God. And fuck Facebook for refreshing its page. That so threw me.
Yeah. What's that about? So anybody who's in the comments now, we haven't been watching comments live because it's just impossible, right? Because we would be distracted like Sean was during the section where it reloaded. So we haven't seen any of the comments that you guys have left. I mean, so if there's particular questions, we've got some time, interact with you guys. And so let me know. I did see one. Oh, actually, Lauren asked, does Lucy come back? I assume you mean in Future of Sex. I don't know that I really want to answer about a coming book, but Lucy hasn't really. I'll answer. Lucy hasn't made an appearance yet. You got to remember, like Future of Sex is in the future.
Right. Yeah. Have we publicly said when it is? Do we want to say when it is?
I did. I mentioned it's in 2060. It's also in the teaser at the end of The Guru. It mentions that.
All right. So. Yeah. So do we have any questions?
And they don't have to be about The Guru. They can be about whatever. This is the first time that we've ever appeared, together doing
that test call,
which was great.
That was super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. We should have boosted that post.
So any questions that anybody has, or just rah. Thank you for being here as well. I actually don't see a lot of questions. People agreeing that Alexia is a bitch. So,
well, clearly she is, but she's you know why I like our bitches and villains, and I don't know if anybody listening has read La Fleur de Blanc, but our female villain character.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, Carrie Barrett Kirby in that book, she's just awesome. And she's hateable. She's just hateable, but you kind of understand her. And I think that's it. I think that our villains are believable. And so even when they're terrible people, they're fun to read.
All right. Question. How long does it take to write one of the stories? Totally depends. And depends on what you mean by how long to write. So the actual drafting of the story from the very first word that is laid on the page until it is finished, that's basically my chief job. So that process takes, depends on the book. The lowest it will take is 2 weeks. The longest it'll take is 4. And that's assuming that that there's not a lot of back and forth. So like The Guru, I had to go through twice. And normally I don't see something again, but I went through The Guru again just to make sure that it was real consistent. But that is only the drafting phase. And then there's a lot of planning that happens up front. We usually discuss a few times. And then there's post-production and editing and all of that stuff. But that's as far as a draft, which is what I'm sort of guessing. Yeah,
the whole process can take like 6 weeks, I guess, maybe, which is about the amount that we want to publish. So it works out. We just, Future of Sex will be, all the way through summer. And then that's about the release schedule that I think we're going to have. So,
well, no, we were looking at more Trillionaire books to finish out the year, I believe.
Well, no, right. But every 6 weeks. That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah. So there will be, after the Future of Sex, there will be Trillionaire Boys Club 7, 8, and 9, and they're not written yet. We are actually kind of at an interesting place where we don't have any leads. So normally we have loose ends and like there's little leads that we've established for, we know what's going to happen with the next book. And this is the first time that's happened. So I'm sure that we'll go back through and we'll decide. Actually, you have decided.
No, I actually, they're further along than you realize, actually.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. 7, 8, and 9 are kind of outlined, and 7 is totally done. 8 and 9 are kind of outlined and will be done soon. And they work as one body, not exactly like 1 through 6 do, but kind of, right? They're like a lot of intersections and a lot of setup for something cool that we have after 9. And that's all we can say now. but yeah, we basically have the next we have the next 3 books. We know who the characters are, we know who the heroes are, we know all of that. That's for sure. And then the 3 books after that, we have an idea that you're gonna love that we know very little about other than the concept, which is cool.
Yeah, Lauren says, I think you should name a character after me. I don't like to promise that for one specific reason. I thought about doing that with somebody else, and it was actually going to be a heroine. And then I realized that I was going to be writing like sex scenes and stuff with this person. And it was really uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, I've written people in sex scenes that have the same name as people I know. And it's not, they weren't named after them, but they just happen to have the same name. And it's really kind of weird. The other thing is that if you do that, then there's a weird responsibility because everybody knows that the character isn't the person, blah, 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 but they will personalize it. And like, oh, why did you have my character do that? You know, so it's a burden of responsibility that's
so
really
true.
tough, really tough.
So true.
However, we have always done many Easter eggs, and we are not going to tell people about 30% of them at least. Like there's a bunch of little Easter eggs that only Juan and I will ever know.
And they're the best ones.
Yeah. So have we killed people in fiction? Yeah. You know, like
I would have gone with maybe
revenge, right? So yeah, you can do stuff like that. Easter eggs, I'm not seeing a lot of questions. So do we want to? I mean, we don't need to.
Well, well, I know it's time to wrap up anyway, but
we should wrap up anyway.
Why don't we close with each our favorite Easter egg, our favorite Aubrey Easter egg?
I feel like I'm going to need time to come up with one, but
I'll go first and then give you a moment. And actually, I don't know that this is my favorite, but it's the weirdest and the first is Evan Shale being in the original.
Do you say Evan?
Evan,
yes.
Yeah. Being in the original, I mean, he's in the first 3 Aubrey books, and we didn't really know who Aubrey was yet. We didn't really know what the series or the world or anything really felt like. We were kind of tiptoeing in the dark a little bit. And so that just seemed like, hey, why don't we have Evan at the table here? And it doesn't quite make sense, but there's something that I really love about it anyway.
No, I'll go out on a limb and say that it actively does not.
Well, so there you go. But I still love it anyway, and its nonsensical nature just kind of amuses me.
Yeah, I still kind of really don't have one. I mean, because there's a billion little beam world ones. You know, if you ever read the Beam. And actually, I was kind of actively hoping that when we were undercover, because Aubrey was never really undercover. Like, I was not mentioning anything. I was actively kind of trying to hide, not from you guys. Like, I didn't care if Aubrey readers figured this out at all. It was the other side, and I explained this in the coming out post. Is our other side carries a lot of baggage. And I didn't want a lot of people sort of putting their fingers in the cooking before Aubrey had become what Aubrey was going to be. And so, we were hiding from that audience. We wanted to have a clean slate. But I was really hoping that Aubrey readers there'd be some crossover. And we did hear that there was there were some people who said, "Oh, my husband has your books, your other books on his bookshelf," and we had no idea. Somebody said that they had Write. Awesome. I think one or two people said, "Oh, I have Write, Publish, Repeat," which is our nonfiction about self-publishing, and so that was kind of neat. But still, nobody called out the Easter eggs, and I was just like really kind of hoping it would have been really funny. And like back in the Trevor's Harem days, in the Burning Offer, Burning Rivalry, for somebody to be like, Alexa Mathis, like what the fuck, Alexa Mathis running a company that, big sex empire, Parker Barnes. Mm-hmm. So those are my favorites, but I've already mentioned those kind of to death, and I can't think of any other.
Well, they count.
There you go. So I guess that's it. I guess we'll finish up. Lauren, she searched and searched. Actually, this is funny. Is Lauren and I have talked a few times on Messenger, and before I came out, like a lot of people were like, just tell me. And so I she was asking for some sci-fi books to read. And so I said a few, like I said, some legit ones. I said, oh, I'm reading, A Dune is one of my favorites and all these things. And then I said, oh, and by the way, like a few hours later, I was like, The Beam, like I recommend The Beam. And I was just really just hoping that would have been really funny because that's our book. So that would have been a little live Easter egg. Anyway, so that's it. I guess nothing else. And we'll see you next time and just keep interacting. And it's great talking to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
All right. If I can find the window, I'll close this down. And there we go, I think. So thanks.